Hi, my name's Pinter. I own Pinter's Gardens and Pumpkins with my wife Elisa, and we started this orchard 5 years ago. We have a 6-acre orchard. There's a total of 6,000 trees. We've planted 1,000 trees per acre. We have 23 varieties total in our orchard. We planted them over a 5-year period, or a 4-year period, and this is the first year we haven't been planting. We just are finally to the part of some production now. We have done all of our orchard on a trellis system, which is basically where we drive the poles in the ground and then we have the wires and we clip the apple trees to that. As you can see here, every one of them is put onto a trellis system. It keeps a narrow row easier to pick. Most all of these varieties are on rootstock that won't get over, hopefully, 10 feet tall. It also keeps people off ladders from picking. This orchard that we're standing in here is our pick your own orchard, where people can come out and pick varieties as they're ready. We don't have every variety that we carry up here, but the majority of them. We have some varieties this variety I'm standing in right now, Zester, will become ready here in about a week. That'll be ready for people to come out and pick, and then we do pick some and have in the store too. We have that variety in an orchard in the back. As far as from start to finish, we first went in and we had to kill the ground. This was originally a hay field. We had to kill the ground in order to plant. We planted all of our trees with a tree planter. It opens up the ground, we put the trees in, and then we walked behind everyone and packed them back in. They're all planted on a 3.5-foot space. And then we came in with a post pounder on the back of a tractor and drove in posts. About every 9 trees there's a post. And then we put an anchor post in on the end of each row in order to support the row. Then we run 4 wires down, which are all stapled on the post, and then we have ratchet tighteners that help to keep it solid. These are considered a dwarf tree, so the idea is they won't get very tall. So in pruning dwarf trees, it's very important to not ever let any of the branches get to be competitive with the tree trunk. So a rule of thumb for us is anything that reaches 3/4 of an inch, most of the time a 1/2 inch, we cut that branch off and let a new branch start. We just don't ever want the branches to compete with the main leader of the tree. So every winter takes a couple guys about 2 months to trim the 6,000 trees. We trim them all, cut everything out that's crossing or sticking out into the row, just to keep it easier to get through for spraying and for picking. We try to maintain kind of a lateral growth system so that we tie the branches to the wires, which helps them kind of produce fruit, which is easier to pick also. We do an integrated pest management, IPM. We do spray. We're not an organic orchard. We spray as needed, not any more than we have to, but as much as we need to. And our spray program kind of runs from just before they start to leaf out in the spring until about 2 weeks ago we were done. So we're done spraying for the season now. So that's part of the maintenance of them. We do kind of an extensive fertilizer program just because they are planted so close together. We do fertilize fairly heavy to make sure that they have good growth. These trees are not all that old, so just trying to get them to grow up, get them up to the top wire, that's kind of the goal. Once they get to there, just maintaining them. I guess one of the biggest things is just making sure that they're trimmed well and not too thick, but giving enough branches to give enough production to them. Most of these trees, Honeycrisp is a little different, but most of these trees, as they get full grown, will produce about 60 to 70 apples is about the most you want on each tree. It's kind of, every orchard's about the same. It's about 1,000 bushel to the acre. You can kind of figure as full production. So 1,000 trees producing a bushel, or trees that everybody used to have in the orchards produced about 20 bushel, and there was about 50 of them per acre. So it's kind of the same amount of apples. You don't get any more apples because there's more trees. It's just easier to pick, a lot easier to maintain. We do not have an irrigation system on our trees. For the last 3 years, the water's been plentiful. This year is the first year that we've had dry weather to deal with, and so we are watering them by hand this year. We probably wouldn't have had to, but my trees are young enough. We just haul water with a tank and pour it on the ground. It's probably not necessary. We're just doing it as a precaution. We have a decent crop this year, considering how young the trees are. So we just wanted to keep everything going as good as we can and hopefully finish the crop out. Of the 6,000 trees, we bought about 4,000 of them as either whips or feathered, meaning a trunk with some branches on it. The other 2,000 we grafted ourselves. We bought rootstock out of Oregon. There's a company out there that grows rootstock, and we bought that from there. Certain rootstock for certain varieties. You know, a fast-growing tree you put on a slow-growing rootstock so that it doesn't grow any taller than you want it to, just to slow down the vigor of a fast-growing tree. I collected signwood, which is last year's growth on an apple tree from a couple different orchards, and that's how. And then we grafted that onto the rootstock to create the varieties that I wanted. There was about 10 varieties that growers don't produce anymore that I wanted to have here. Like Regents were hard to get, and Connell Reds. There was just a few that I would have had to wait 2 to 3 years to get somebody to custom graft, so we did those ourselves. And those are our youngest trees in the orchard. I grafted them. It took 2 years in a nursery bed, then we dug them up and planted them. So that was kind of that was our final 4th year of planting. We're located 4 miles west of Decorah on Highway 9. This here front orchard is about 1.5 acres of pick your own. We have 2 other orchards in the back where we pick and we sell those to some colleges, and we're working with some stores. And then we also sell, the majority of our sales are here as much as possible, but we do wholesale some to colleges. And as production gets better and as the trees get older, then we'll start to look at other markets. But these trees, even our oldest trees, have only been here 5 years, so, and it takes about 3 years to get to starting decent production. So we're just kind of getting into where, and we have some trees that have another year or 2 before they'll really be into production. So as that grows, then we'll have a lot more to sell, I guess. At this point, we're able to keep up with what we can produce. So I guess that's kind of the main thing on the grafting, watering, fertilizing. As I said, as far as sprays go, we do spray an insecticide. That's probably one of the biggest things that is a problem, is all the different bugs with apple trees. One thing we have going for us here is we don't have a lot of orchards close to us, which really helps with the disease problems. You get in an area where there's multiple orchards, there's always more stuff to deal with. And we have good airflow out here, which helps, but we still deal with enough bugs and diseases that have to watch for. So we'll walk down a row here just to show a little bit more on this trellis system. This is our anchor post at the end, which is driven in at an angle. And then we tie the 4 wires around that with the ratchets, and the same thing is on the other end of every row. And that is what creates the tension to keep a nice tight row, to help withstand the wind and things like that. I'll kind of show you as we go down. This is a row of ginger gold, which is our second variety that'll become ready in our pick your own orchard, usually towards the end of August, early September, a lot of times right after Labor Day. I'll kind of show how we use multiple different things to do our branching to keep them. We've used clothespins. You can also do it with wire. The idea is just to get kind of the ladder effect of branches running out. It just helps with fruit production, and otherwise you get some of this where a branch is so heavy that they can break off. So that's why we try to get those branches held and make a good branch connection there so that they don't break off. One thing I didn't talk about is harvesting. So as we also do have Honeycrisp. We have 2,000 of our trees are Honeycrisp, but they are in the back orchards. We don't have those in our pick your own, but we do as they come ready, we'll have them for sale in the store. So as far as harvesting goes, because they're dwarf trees and we don't have to use ladders for very many of them, we pick them into bags that fit on us, and then we put them into crates and we take them down. We have an apple building with a drive-in cooler that holds like 5,000 bushel. So at the point when the orchard is full production, we'll have room for all of them. We have a washing system that we dump the apples on. They go through a washer that has a product that sanitizes them, kills any bacteria on them, anything like that. Then they go through a brushing system which dries them off. They go down the belt, and there's 3 different sizes that automatically size them to small, medium, and large, and then the extra large go off the end. And then they're all boxed at that point into number 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then they go into the cooler. So all of our apples are basically sanitized, boxed, and straight into the cooler as they're picked. So, and we kind of have the orchard set up so that at most of the time we only have one variety being ready, but there's always some that aren't quite ready and you have to go back and pick. But we try to hit one variety at a time. So we can kind of walk up through and I can show some of the other varieties that we have in the pick your own here. Enterprise is kind of an old one that's a pretty late apple, and it's a good cooking apple. It says it's a good eating apple, but it's quite tart. So Zester is one of the first ones that'll be ready, like we talked. And we've got Snow Sweet, which is after Zester here. That's a really good eating apple, kind of in that mid-October range, and that always depends, you know, what the sign says doesn't always mean. This dry weather will probably end up ripening things a little quicker this year, but it's typically October. Wine Crisp is a good cooking apple. The Galas, we have a couple different Galas, Buckeye and Brookfield, and they're a smaller apple, but pretty sweet, a little softer apple, but they're definitely a lot smaller than most. Gibson Golden is a really late variety. It's got a good gold flavor, or gold apple, but it's just a different taste than some of them. I tried to have some different varieties, some older varieties, and some of the newer ones. This is a Macintosh. This is the only Macintosh we have, and it'll be ready early September this year, most likely. Then we have Jonna Golds, which is a Jonathan crossed with a Golden Delicious. So that's kind of to get the Jonathan here. This is the only Fuji we have too. They do okay around here, but it's just not as, we don't have the best growing for those. Gold Rush is another gold apple that's, I would say, the end of October, and it's typically quite late. Blondie's an early one, and it's a yellow apple that's actually probably one of my favorites, but very tender skin and very good eating. Region is a very old variety, and this is a pretty popular one with the schools. So these are trees that we grafted from here on up on this orchard. There's some in every orchard, but as you can see, these are smaller just because when we started out they were only about 10 inches tall. So it's taken 4 years to get them to here, but they've grown quite a little this year. So Connell Red is the same as Fireside. It's virtually the same variety. And Sweet 16, everybody, that's my wife's favorite apple, and probably just as good, if not better, than Honeycrisp. But we have a bunch of them in the back too. Liberty is an old variety, and so is Haralson. Empire and Wealthy. Pretty much all of these up through here are some older variety apples that actually came from Signwood, from an orchard that was retiring. So we just tried to keep some of those varieties around. Keepsake's also a good school apple because it's small and they like it in the high schools. So. Then another